So,
Hey,
hey,
did you want to talk about Downton Abbey?
no, I didn't. But, what I do want to talk is follow up on what I said last week was going on here, which was the 35mm screening of Shrek. Well, it's a bad news, good news thing. The bad news is that Shrek was not here in 35mm. It was here on a DCP, and as such, I did not go to it. But do you know what I did see today at the Music Box in 35mm?
What?
The Gang's All Here, a Bubsy Berkeley movie from 1943. The one that has the, I don't know if infamous is the right word or famous is the right word, Rudy Tooty Fruity Girl Carmen Miranda song.
I don't think I know that.
Let me tell you, I went just expecting just a solid morning. At the most, it was going to be like The Pirate, which is a Vincent Minnelli musical that I really like too. But I walked out of this being like, that might be one of the best musicals I've ever seen in my life. Like, I'm giving it a 5 out of 5 on Letterboxd. Like, I was legit, like, blown away by it. The plot doesn't matter. All that matters is the crazy imagery and the really cool dancing in it. Like, legit, I was just like, I was smiling ear to ear the entire time. And the thing is, like, the plot doesn't matter, but it's still really funny throughout a lot of it. I highly recommend it. And apparently it's on YouTube. I saw...
What was the name?
The Gang's All Here. It's a propaganda film that's designed to help you sell war bonds. And normally I'm against propaganda, but let me tell you, as soon as it ended, I was like, where can I buy those war bonds? Because... if my war bonds partially funds films like this, well, I guess the military-industrial complex is okay.
You can find The Gang's All Here on YouTube if you want to support the war effort.
Yeah, I don't know if there's YouTube ads on it. It would be pretty cool. I doubt this would never be the way it works. But imagine if it's on YouTube and it's like, yeah, the ads on YouTube go to the military. That's what I did this week. Well, literally 2 hours ago.
Well, I'm coming to you from hell because New York is experiencing a heat wave right now. I've been doing rehearsals. I've got a show coming up, and it's just been hot. It's not a whole lot to report because I go to rehearsal and then I come home and I just turn on the air conditioner and go to sleep uncomfortable.
Are you feeling more do the right thing, or are you feeling more in the heights?
I'm feeling more do the right thing because do the right thing is just more about New York than In the Heights is.
Well, it's too darn hot, like my man Cole Porter said. Sorry.
What I'm feeling right now is like, I feel like I'm underwater with how hot everything is, which I don't...
That is pretty do the right thing then, yeah.
Well, if I can be kind of weird and subjective, I think Do the Right Thing is a dry heat. I don't feel wet watching Do the Right Thing because all of the characters are so active, and I'm trying to think of a movie that really captures the kind of heat that I'm feeling right now because it's a much...
Heat by Michael
Mann. What movie do you think of when you think of Heat? You want to talk about some Pixar shorts?
Yeah, by the way, I'm Danny Vincent.
Hey, I'm Mark Young, and this is Looking for the Ocean, a Pixar journey. What are we talking about today, Danny?
Not only did I lie last week by seeing Shrek in 35mm, but I lied about the exact films we were covering this week. For one thing, okay. I said, I believe I said Winter was Andrew Stanton. It's Pete Docter. Anyway, we're covering the student films of the original Pixar Brain Trust, which is John Lasseter, Andrew Stanton, and Pete Docter. So, and specifically, that is Lady in the Lamp and Nightmare for John Lasseter, and I also threw in a kind of a tech demo, kind of a proof of concept from John Lasseter of Where the Wild Things Are. And then we're covering Andrew Stanton's 2 student films, Somewhere in the Arctic and A Story. And then we're covering Pete Docter's 3 student films, Winter, Palm Springs, and Next Door. So if you didn't watch these, I'm going to put you on blast on the pod. So, all right.
I watched all of them. We'll find out.
Lady in the Lamp, Nightmare, and Where the Wild Things Are. These are John Lasseter's. Now, very important note is that while Lady in the Lamp and Nightmare... And all of these, I believe, were done at CalArts, which, you know, is the infamous... animation school in California. obviously. But I say infamous because nowadays there's always this thing
it's not
where,
in like Calgary, Alberta.
No, sorry.
That's a geography joke,
no,
everybody.
I said,
All
no.
right, here we go.
Nowadays, whenever like a new cartoon comes out, they go like, ew, CalArts style. I don't know if you ever see that on animation Twitter is a cesspool. I'm sorry if you came to this podcast from animation Twitter. We partially love you, but I also hate you. Like, I saw this thing on very side note animation Twitter. I saw everyone get mad at this thing from Yahoo News, which, granted, Yahoo News is terrible. I hate Yahoo News. Where it was like,
I didn't know Yahoo News still existed.
oh, it's bad. It's very bad. But it was like a review of that new movie, The Bad Guys, the new DreamWorks movie, where it was like, it's good if you have kids. And someone was like, this is so derogatory towards animation. Like, no, this is a movie that's legitimately made for children. So, like this is a movie that's made, like, them saying it's a good movie for children and giving it a 3 out of 4 review, that's a positive review. Don't get mad at that review for saying that this movie that is made for children is for kids. Anyway.
How was The Bad Guys?
There's a lot of bad things going on in the world. I think one of the best things to happen in movies in the last few years is that Spider-Verse was a legitimate commercial and critical hit, and that allows these studios to now experiment with their animation style, because The Bad Guys looks gorgeous, and my snappy one-liner take, which won't make much sense if people forgot, because most people forgot this movie, is that it's good that Awkwafina is now in a good Ocean's 11 reboot, because she was in Ocean's 8, and I'm not a big fan of Ocean's 8, but The Bad Guys actually nails like the Ocean Soderbergh vibe way more than Ocean's 8 did. Anyway, getting back to my CalArts
so the
point.
people from CalArts.
Yeah, well, no. The CalArts point is that, like, nowadays, whenever a new cartoon comes out, people be like, this is the CalArts style, where, like, the chin kind of sticks out. And I thought it was kind of funny, because I feel like you can see the CalArts style in this film, in some of these films. Because it's a very distinct style. Like, have you ever seen... Oh, no, actually, I showed you when we were in college, Star vs. the Forces of Evil. I don't know if you remember the character designs for that, but that is, like, peak CalArts style. That and Steven Universe. You know what I'm saying, right? I'm trying to get, like, to what the CalArts style is.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. I kind of disagree about labeling something like the CalArts style.
Oh, I disagree, too. I'm just saying this is something
it's
animation
cherry
does.
picking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So all these were done in CalArts.
Every one of them.
I think, well, Where the Wild Things Are was not. And I also noticed a story in the credits, thanks Pixar, which I thought was interesting. Or Next Door, one of them two does. I think all three of the directors had one that was weak. I think would you agree with me on that?
I'm going to keep it real with you. I don't think A Story or Where the Wild Things Are is on the list, because I'm looking at the list.
Mark, all right, I will explain to you, and you can either keep this in the episode or cut it. So last week, and this is what I said at the beginning, and I lied about Shrek, is that I forgot to mention some of the movies. However, in the document that I sent to you that include links to everything, I added Where the Wild Things Are in a story.
Oh, yep.
And there are links to them. So either you watched them or you didn't, but the links were there where you were supposed to look for the movies.
All right.
So...
Well, in any case, I do agree with you that some of these are stronger and some are weaker. I was mostly impressed by the length of all of them.
Yeah.
Most are longer than 1.5 minutes, which is crazy for hand-drawn animation.
Especially some of the animation here is really good in a couple of these.
But go on with what you were saying about strong and weak.
Well, I think my point was going to be, I think John Lasseter is the one where I think both of... Wait, so did you watch Where the Wild Things Are or not?
I did not.
So I thought both of John Lasseter's were bad. I thought Where the Wild Things Are is fascinating. It's a piece of animation history. Because it's a hybrid CG, computer animated and traditional animation that looks on the level of what Disney eventually did with Tarzan, like 10 years later.
Wow, that sounds like the one that I should have watched.
Yeah, well, it's not really a story. It's like an animation test. It was kind of cool to look at. It's something where, though, I'm still glad we got the Spike Jonze movie, because I'm willing to bet it'd be a way better movie than whatever the Disney-fied version of it would be. I thought Lady in the Lamp is one joke, and it's not that funny. It really isn't.
Lady in the Lamp and Nightmare are high concept, and they just don't really go anywhere. But the production value is high.
I'd say for Nightmare it is. I think Lady in the Lamp is still, like, I mean, I think it might be part of the choice. I think it looks a little rough, because it's very pencil sketchy. And
yeah, I mean, I accept that.
But I don't know. Nightmare. Two things. We're talking about the place in Pixar history. Well, these both have very obvious places in Pixar history. These feel like forebears, of course, to Luxo Jr. with the lamp, and Nightmare feels like somewhat of a Monsters Inc. Like building the Monsters Inc.
I do think that it's interesting to see how he chooses to humanize the lamp, like the walk that it has. I don't really have the language for it, but I can imagine that making this solid object into some kind of fluid object with those rules is very difficult. So I did appreciate Lady and the Lamp for how the lamp moved, and it wasn't just like give it legs or make it hobble around. Like the base actually acts as feet in a way.
Do you know what memories actually it brought back more than Luxo Jr. to me was the Brave Little Toaster. I don't know why, like, I have very vivid memories of that film, watching that movie a bunch as a kid, but yet I have no idea what happened in it. Like, unlike Toy Story and a bunch of other stuff, it's just like, actually remembering what that movie is about, other than, I guess it was about a brave little toaster, if I remember right, I think Lasseter was somewhat involved with Brave Little Toaster, because I remember when it came out, people were accusing Toy Story of ripping it off. Do you want to do an episode of Brave Little Toaster?
I think that'd be fun, but maybe in a little bit.
Back to this movie, these movies. I don't have much to say more about Lady and the Lamp. I like the animation style of Nightmare a lot, though. It works for me better because I don't think the joke is as tired, even though it is, again, just one joke that's repeating. But I like the gag, and I also think it has good sound design. It doesn't sound like a stock trees scraping the window, and that's what I like about it, too.
I think I would have preferred it as a stock trees scraping the window. That was another joke that didn't exactly work for me.
Was it a joke? I thought it was just like, ooh, that actually is gross.
Well, I've seen it done before. I should have found other examples of this, but that moment really confused me, because can't you imagine in your mind like a tree scraping a window, and then you look up and you see, oh, it's not a monster hand, it's a tree. But something about the acting in that scene kind of threw me. Like, it doesn't have an arc, or his expression is weird or something like that. Like, it needs to be like an actual monster hand before it becomes a tree branch. It's something that's like old Disney that I'm thinking of that does it better.
I would agree.
That's just another thing that threw me about Nightmare, is that it's once again this very ambitious project with so much going on, and some parts of it just don't exactly come together.
To me, it doesn't really start until the strobe effect happens, and then suddenly the monsters are actually there. So to me, that when the kid's afraid of it, I don't care. But when like the monster's in his bed terrified of it, that works for me, because the monster has such a more expressive character model.
Which is like the last 20 seconds of the movie.
Well, yeah, but it's the best part of it. So, and that to me, in and of itself, makes it better than Lady in the Lamp. Andrew Stanton, did you watch The Story or no? If you didn't, it's fine.
No, but I watched his other ones.
Okay, then I'll talk briefly about A Story. I think A Story is way better than Somewhere in the Arctic. It's goofy.
Oh,
it's
I loved Somewhere in the Arctic. That was probably my favorite of all of these, if I had to compare all of them.
I'll just say right now, I felt uncomfortable at points watching Somewhere in the Arctic. It felt a little dated in its depictions of Native Americans, or Inuit people, rather. Native Americans probably isn't the right word. But that's not why I had an issue with it entirely. I had other issues with it too. But A Story is... Can I just spoil A Story for you?
Yeah.
So, it opens as a storybook that's in live action, and I believe it's Andrew Stanton narrating. He's like, I'm going to read you this story. It's like about a kid who loves TV, and then this monster that actually, right now, if I tell you this, I want you to Google A Story to look at the image of the monster, because a monster shows up who looks exactly like a Pixar character from 15 years later, while he's watching TV, pulls the kid into the TV, and then they go on an adventure where a clown kidnaps him and threatens to murder the king, but then the clown actually does kill the king, and the kid dies off screen, and it's like, and that's the end of the story, and that's the whole thing. I enjoyed it more because it was more of a full story, no pun intended. And also, I think the animation style was way more nuanced here. A lot of diversity in the character designs, and I just thought it was fun. I noticed the name of the credits of both this and Somewhere in the Arctic, which is noteworthy for animators, which was Rich Moore, who directed a ton of Simpsons episodes, but moreover, he directed Wreck-It Ralph and co-directed Zootopia. So, way in the future, going to work for Disney. He also directed a lot of Futurama. So, it's interesting to see him in Andrew Stanton's early work. It makes me wonder if he was ever, invited to go to Pixar, and he just didn't go, But, yeah, I like the story. Did you look up a story to see the character design, or no?
I did, and I totally agree with you.
It's solely for Monsters, Inc.
Yeah.
I was keeping it on the download so Mark could just see for himself. It's 100% just solely for Monsters, Inc., which is weird, because Andrew Stanton didn't direct that. But, as we know from the classic Pixar teaser trailers, which I also want to dedicate an episode to, I'll have to add it to the schedule. Do you remember the WALL-E teaser trailer?
No.
The WALL-E teaser trailer. So, and again, we're going to dedicate probably an episode to the Pixar teaser trailers, because they're almost all, at least up until, I believe, Cars 2? Maybe Brave? I don't know when they stopped. They're all, exclusive footage for the movie that is not actually in the film proper. It's teaser, it's like a short with the characters.
Oh, yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah. So, WALL-E, they didn't do that. WALL-E, if you went to go see Ratatouille, you sat in the theater, and always, the Pixar trailers last, because it's telling you it's not going to come out for a year. And all of a sudden, you get a black and white image of Pete Docter, Andrew Stanton, and John Lasseter on screen. And they go do you remember when we founded Pixar, and we had that lunch, where we talked about all those movie ideas we had? We had an idea about monsters that lived indoors. We had an idea about a fish looking for his son. I'm trying to remember what the last one was. Oh, and of course, toys coming to life. But we never made a movie of that last one.
I do remember that trailer now.
And then it's this is our last one of those original ideas. It's WALL-E. And they show you just a little bit of WALL-E. And honestly, me talking about the trailer gives me chills. It's really think about how audacious that is to release that as a trailer to what is ostensibly in 2007 being marketed as the next year's big kids movie with WALL-E. But we're going to have these filmmakers sit down and talk to you about the genesis of this idea. But anyway, with all that is why, maybe, to get back to this, maybe that's how the design of WALL-E solely came from here.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure that there was cross-pollination.
Yeah, especially under these early films, where, Pete Docter, Monsters, Inc. is the first film not directed by Lasseter. Yeah. All right. Somewhere in the Arctic. Let's talk about Somewhere in the Arctic, because you watched that one.
Somewhere in the Arctic. Well, it is basically, it's like Duck Amuck. Well, it's not actually mostly like Duck Amuck. It's a gag short. It's a gag short. Yeah, it's a gag short. That's a good way of putting it. It's just a bunch of Inuit people chasing a polar bear, and the polar bear tries to trick them or pacify them in a few different ways. It puts up a sign that says library, so they all think they have to be quiet and read books. And it puts on a song by the Temptations, so everyone chills out and dances to the Temptations. And it is
pretty funny. I'll admit, despite my discomfort with to me, I felt like there were racial stereotypes. I did laugh a bit, quite a bit doing this. It's really, most of the gags work.
Yeah, there's not a lot of internal motivation, but I do think they're solid gags. And my favorite is the one which I did not recognize from something else, but I thought was really cool. And I'm sure it's ripped off from somewhere. But the polar bear leaves the cartoon and walks out into the audience, and you see his silhouette watching the short film. And then the Inuit people are like, "Where did he go?" And they walk towards the camera and see him watching the movie as
it's the walking up that gets me.
Silhouette.
The walking up is what gets me, because I've seen the MST3K stuff in old Looney Tunes shorts, but I can't ever remember a time of Daffy walking up to the camera and it's Bugs, what are you like? You know what I mean? Like, it's such a.
Yeah.
It gets so ridiculously huge too. And I also love the last joke of it, which is when they run back into the movie, but they run back on different planes of existence. So the polar bear is kaiju sized, and
Yeah,
the
it's
Inuit
like how-
people are like really tiny.
So, gag short, that's what it is.
Okay, I did say above besides racial stereotypes, and the other reason is I don't really think. I mean, there is a progression to the gags, but it's one of those things where, unlike, say, a Wile E. Coyote short, you know, where we get like the fade in and fade out. Maybe it's because it's all just one continuous shot that, to me, it doesn't really feel like it's ever going anywhere. Even though obviously it ends on the best place to end, it just still never really feels to me like it's building to that. And I think that's why it didn't quite work for me.
I will throw in that these are also kind of quibbles, and these are obviously very technically accomplished student films.
Oh yeah, definitely, 100%. These are better than anything I saw in film school.
Yeah,
these are way better.
These are amazing.
Yeah.
We're kind of they're shorts, and I think they're mostly designed to show off technical skill more than be like shorts that have to stand alone as a story.
And then finally we get to Pete Docter. Winter, Palm Springs, and Next Door. All right. Your favorite was Summer in the Arctic. My favorite was Winter. It's very short and sweet. More than anything else here, this is the one that took me back to my childhood. It gave me that Ratatouille feeling. Not because of the short itself, actually. Because I mean, yeah, I remember, of course, getting ready to go outside on Winter. But where it brought me back was, and his art style is like this in Next Door too, but it feels more fitting in a story, is that this feels like a Calvin and Hobbes strip brought to life. The art style just reminds me of like flipping my dad's Calvin and Hobbes books that he had in his room. And it really takes me back to that warm nostalgia of maybe I just came in from the snow and I'm in my parents' room and I'm grabbing a Calvin and Hobbes book in the afternoon on winter break. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Like, it really took me straight back to that. And I also think the gag is really fun. It's a one gag short, but the build up to it is just the right amount of length that the gag still made me laugh at the end, even though I've seen this before. And it feels like it would have been nostalgic for Pete when he was making it too. I'm on first name basis with him, don't you know? What'd you think of Winter,
Pete.
though? Yeah.
I agree that it was nostalgic and sweet. I think that I really wanted to see the progression of the joke more than the build-up to it, and the short is mostly build-up to the final joke, which doesn't really go anywhere. It's just not animated in a way that does anything with the joke. You kind of get it that the kid can't move once they're bundled up in all these clothes, but don't you want to see how the kid tries to move? What are the limits of his movement? We see a little bit of that when he flips his hands, but it just doesn't mean anything in terms of how he'll play in the snow. And then the short ends. That was my beef with it. I think the short could have begun when the kid steps outside and is already bundled up.
To me, the thing is that, and the reason I want to give this more credit is maybe I'm wrong. This is the only filmmaker we have where there are 3 shorts. So I have to assume this was his sophomore year.
He actually, in his little interview, if you watch this
as
it was given it, he says this was his first short film.
Yeah, and for that, like, you know what my first short film was? Like, have you seen...
Well, yeah.
I think it's really good for a first short film. It's evocative, it's nice, and the animation is really good too. And I don't know, I guess it's just what you want out of it, you know? I see what you're saying, but to me it's like, you know what also it reminds me of is A Christmas Story. And I think that's probably actually, well, I was going to say it might be an inspiration for him, but you know what? A Christmas Story, I always forget, it came out in like 1985, and I think this was 86 or 87.
I think that it's interesting that you were pulled to the setting, and I'm pulled a little more to the action. And yet you don't love the John Lasseter shorts, which I think are full of ambiance and the action is so the story is a little bit all over the place, but that's what I would say is a positive about the John Lasseter shorts, is they really go for the backgrounds and setting the tone of the stories.
The thing is that the John Lasseter ones, what I was going to say with the John Lasseter ones, and this is our weekly mention of John Lasseter being a creep, is that I just found them kind of repulsive. Well, we mention it every time he comes up. Like, at least once a week we mention that, yeah, he's not great anymore. But I find them kind of repulsive in a sense. And the reason I say that is, like, in Lady in the Lamp, when the first thing I get is this guy walking, going like, oh, let's get ready for you to be for this woman I want. I'm really excited for her to see you. And it's just like, dude, who cares? Like, it's just a lamp shop. We don't need this ridiculous ending thing where a woman walks in and is like, I want that lamp. It's just, I just don't like the conceit behind the atmosphere, if that makes sense. Nightmare to me is a similar thing where, like, let's say Winter, I feel like, to me, if Winter was an ongoing thing where it's like, oh, the kid just wants to go play, and he's trying to get up, and we're gonna do wacky adventures with that, I think I would get tired of that. Us leaving it just like, oh, his mom cares so much from that he's getting ready, oh, but he fell over, pan out, everyone on the cul-de-sac is also stuck in the snow because they're too bundled up. I think that, to me, works better than overplaying your hand. Does that make sense?
That would be a great short. That didn't actually happen, though. That's a hilarious concept. That's not how that short ended.
Yeah, it did. What are you talking about?
With everyone bundled up and unable to move?
Yeah, did you turn it off before it ended? Because that's how it ended. I'm looking at it right now.
That's great. There were things, I don't know. Okay.
It's the camera pans out and you, hold on, I'm trying to open it up right now. So I
thought it just panned out and that was the end, and then I just stopped paying attention.
No, you can see literally, let me count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 other kids stuck in the snow. Same way he is. Yeah. Yeah, that's what... Come on, Mark.
Well, that is a very nice concept. It's so hot.
You can't deal with
I watched
winter.
these all like 30 minutes ago.
Yeah, same. Anyway, Palm Springs, this is the one I didn't like. Of the Pete Docter ones. It's just one pun.
It's a pun?
Palm Springs? Did you not get it?
I know that it's...
They're bouncing on a palm tree. Palm Springs.
Oh. Well, for what it's worth, maybe I just... Something about the Pete Docter ones just did not capture me at all.
Oh, I thought Palm Springs was bad, though, too. I was not into it.
Because I'm missing what they were about.
And Next Door got me back to those Calvin and Hobbes vibes, but the difference is it kind of felt like Somewhere in the Arctic to me, where it doesn't really feel like it's building to anything.
Yeah.
And then when it does...
I think that the kazoo was something.
It's something, but then you don't even get, like, a payoff of him... I don't think he... I
have no memory. That is the deal with these student shorts, is that across the board, the pacing is so bad that you kind of drift in and out.
The art style I thought was really good, because it feels very 3D in a sense. There's a lot of cool movement with perspective that makes it feel very proto-computer animation, though as far as I can tell it is entirely hand-drawn. Excellingly well animated in that regard.
Yeah, and I think that it plays with a lot of different scenarios very well. Like, every time it cuts to the girl's perspective, it's somehow different, or the perspective is warped in some way, and you don't lose the action of what they're doing, which I thought was really cool.
So, what can we take away from these shorts for Pixar? The beginnings of John Lasseter, Andrew Stanton, and Pete Docter.
I think that if these were made by people in their early 20s, it's pretty clear that they would go on to make something like Pixar.
Yeah.
Or they would go on to make the movies that Pixar has made. These are incredibly accomplished student films, and it's easy to see how they foreshadow a lot of the characters and situations of Pixar films.
And even, emotional depth to me. Like, to me, winter hints at like the type of like stuff you'll get in like the nostalgia childhood type of thing you get in Nightmare 2, you know? You know what I mean? Like how Pixar movies are all about really valuing the innocence. I don't know if that makes sense or not. I don't really
I think it does, but
okay.
I think it does, but that's another thing that's a you take and less of something that I've talked about or I've thought about watching them.
Yeah, okay, that's fair. Yeah, very fair.
I do think that, you know, these are cherry picked by them to be out in the world, but it is interesting how you can draw a line from each of these to something that would come up later in Pixar movies.
Although I'm still waiting for my Pixar movie about the polar bear. Unless that's foreshadowing for the Coca-Cola.
That was the Norm of the North.
It's not a Pixar movie. We're going to do a Norm of the North episode.
If anyone, I made a note to myself to do less tangents in this recording, but I do think it's interesting for the audience to know that for a couple, maybe a year or maybe 2 years, Danny and his roommate Julius in college had a poster for Norm of the North on their door of their dorm.
It's memorialized in some of our student films. The one where the ghost of Billy Wilder disappears in a film. Norm of the North is right behind. You know, I was talking to Julius about that one, and I was saying, well, actually, I talked to everyone. I'm like, you know, I think that was actually my biggest accomplishment. I think that is the best film I ever made in film school. Is Shit in a Can. 100%. I think everything else I made was not nearly as well rounded as that was. If that makes sense.
That it seems like something that Criterion would release, having Billy Wilder, you know, the young student, and you have Billy Wilder played by a young black man who, like, appears as a vision.
He's reading the script. Like, he's reading the script of the movie he's in.
It's like, it's very Brechtian.
Yeah. All right. I think that's us for now. Next time, we will do our first episode dedicated to a single short. We will see if it comes out shorter or not. We will be covering the first official Pixar short, Luxo Jr.
Looking for the Ocean, a Pixar podcast, is produced by Mark Young and Danny Vincent. I do the editing, and our artwork is done by Sarah Knopf.
Yeah, and you can find us at Facebook at Looking for the Ocean, a Pixar Journey. You can find us on Twitter at Pixar Journey and on Instagram at Looking for the Ocean Pod. You can also email us at lookingfortheoceanpixar@gmail.com.
If you want to know what I'm up to, everything is available on my website, markyoungperformer.com.
You can listen to my other two podcasts, Wise with Ty and Dan and The Snub Club, wherever you can find your podcasts. You can also find me on Letterboxd at Blankmints for all my takes on all of the movies. We'll see you next time.
See you next time.